All right, it is 3 p.m. We will go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Liz Dunbar. I'm the Product and Marketing Manager for our Greenhouse and Nursery portfolio here at BASF. I am excited to roll out our inaugural 2024 Summer Savings Event program as part of our overall program refresh this year. So you've seen we've taken some of the best parts and pieces of other programs offered by BASF to structure this program with the intention of meeting fall production needs at a time of year when pest and disease pressures are highest. So with that, let's jump into what we will cover today. So we will go over just a quick welcome and housekeeping. Before we move into the program overview, you'll get to see the details of our newest program. And then I'll turn it over to our Senior Technical Specialist in the Southeast, Dr. Emma Lukabaugh. We will talk for about 45 minutes, and at the end, we will moderate a Q&A session. So if at any point in time a question arises, please use either the chat or the Q&A functionality of Teams. So a couple quick things. This meeting is being recorded, so we will make sure to highlight the video content of this recording through our Better Plants newsletter. That is our monthly newsletter on all things greenhouse and nursery. And if you are not currently subscribed, feel free to use that QR code on the screen you see there to subscribe and receive that newsletter. It goes out about every month. And if you want to follow up with your BASF representative directly, they will also be receiving this recording as well. Again, that Q&A function is active in Teams, or you can drop it in the chat and we'll moderate those questions and answers at the end of the technical presentation. So moving into the program details of our 2024 Summer Savings Event. This program is going to run June 1st through July 31st, 2024. We try to keep things simple when we structure our programs. So this is an end user off invoice discount, and participants will realize the instant savings ranging from about 5 to 11% on qualifying products. And we know the importance of extended terms offered through our fall programs. So we have structured this program to include extended terms into November. So you'll see that term date at the bottom there, November 20th. So that production can ship fall crops and see some return in cash flows and production before bills are due. So this was an important selling point for our fall grower program into the spring and getting through spring production. So we tried to structure our summer program the same way. Next, you'll see our full lineup of products focusing on Avelio, Orchestra, and Pageant, our fungicide lineup, and then our insecticides, Pylon miticide insecticide, Sultan miticide, and Ventigra insecticide. And so why buy during the summer savings event? So growers can set themselves up with fall production on instant savings of our intrinsic brand fungicides and our plant health benefits that they provide, our class-leading insecticides, which you'll learn about. You should have seen last week in our training. This week we'll be focusing on our fungicide portfolio. And of course, our latest innovation, Avelio fungicide, which is an excellent rotation partner to use with any of our fungicide offerings here. And so again, growers can finish and ship fall crops while enjoying extended terms through November 20th. And our team really designed this program with a sincere intention of meeting both operational and crop protection needs. So we hope you see the value in the setup of this new program. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Emma Lukabaugh. Emma, if you want to take it away.
Okay, great. Thanks, Liz. Okay, here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it looks great.
Okay. So like Liz mentioned, I'm just going to give a general training for the fungicides that are part of the program. So this isn't our entire portfolio. It's mainly just focused on Pageant, Orchestra, and Avelio. So here's our whole lineup. And kind of the way we think about the BASF fungicides is we have kind of two categories here. We have your foundational fungicides, and that's where Pageant intrinsic brand fungicide, Orchestra intrinsic brand fungicide, and then Empress intrinsic come in. And then on the other side, you have your rotation partners. So Avelio fungicide is our newest DMI fungicide. And then we also have our oomycete specialists like Stature and Orvego. So I'll start out just talking about our intrinsic brand fungicides and kind of the background of the intrinsic plant health benefits that you get from these fungicides. So when we think about intrinsic, we want to think about plant health and really think about how these products can serve as the foundation of a spray program. So some of the history with that intrinsic plant health and a little bit about the active ingredients. So all of our intrinsic brand fungicides have pyraclostrobin as one of the active ingredients. And pyraclostrobin was discovered in the 90s, and we launched it into the crop world in a fungicide called Headline in 2001. And then in 2002, we launched Insignia into turf and ornamentals. And what they were seeing in the crop world was that in the absence of disease, the plants that had been treated with pyraclostrobin or treated with that headline fungicide were healthier, and they were displaying higher crop yields in the absence of disease, in the absence of stress or insect damage. And so a lot of these factors, what they were seeing was that they were getting plant health benefits when environmental stress was present. And so whether that was heat stress, drought stress, cold stress, other stresses. And so what they wanted to do is figure out what was causing those increased stress tolerance in the plants that had been treated with fungicides. And so BASF fungicide or BASF scientists went into the lab and they did all sorts of research to figure out that pyraclostrobin was actually affecting plant metabolism in a positive way. And so what was happening in the plants that had been treated with these fungicides was that they were seeing decreases in respiration, levels of enzymes were being increased, and then hormones like ethylene had been reduced. And so in a simplified version, we were seeing increased nitrogen, increased carbon. All of that was then available for plant growth. And then we were seeing decreased ethylene, which was leading to reduced stress in the plant. And so when we go over to the ornamental side, you're going to see those plant health benefits in the form of increased growth efficiency. And so I'll start off talking about Pageant and how we can get the benefits of that increased growth efficiency out of Pageant. So Pageant intrinsic brand fungicide really is our foundational fungicide. This is a combination of pyraclostrobin with boscalid. So you have a group 11 QOY fungicide plus a group 7 SDHI fungicide. So dual actives means you have broad spectrum disease control. And it also has a little bit of resistance management built in. And then some of the intrinsic benefits that you're going to see with Pageant are faster, more uniform rooting, fewer skips during propagation. You're going to get denser canopies with more buds and more flowers. And then all of that is going to give you a more resilient crop. So you're going to see increased recovery from cold, drought, and other stresses. So the way we position Pageant is we say we want to use that as your foundational application. And so we designed a propagation program that really centers on Pageant applications. And so this is, the simplified version of that propagation program. So if you're in the propagation business and if you're growing plants from unrooted cuttings or even rooted cuttings, Pageant should be the first application out of the gate. And so basically the program includes your first application of Pageant at sticking or within the first 3 to 4 days after sticking. So you make an application of Pageant. 14 days later, you make a second application of Pageant. And then you're going to rotate into another mode of action. So that could be iprodione, that could be something like chlorothalonil, or you can use a Valio fungicide, which is a nice plant-safe DMI that is safe to use in propagation as well. And so those three applications, you continue for the duration of the propagation. So as long as those plants are under mist, you would just continue that program. And then the last application that you make once those plants are rooted, the last application prior to transplant, that is when you're going to come back and make a drench of Empress intrinsic brand fungicide. And so this propagation program has been, field tested for years. We have a lot of growers who have switched to our propagation program, and basically they've reported more uniform crops, less losses due to dry down and disease. And really, that program is designed to cover you from sticking all the way up until transplant, and it can be completely customized depending on what crop you're growing. You can also treat your stock plants prior to taking cuttings. So you can treat your stock plants with Pageant, and you'll end up with higher quality cuttings that are less prone to dry down in between that period of when you take the cuttings and then when you actually get them under mist. And so that can be a nice addition to your stock production as well. So here are some photos from growers who have used that propagation program and used Pageant in propagation. And so these are some of the benefits that you're going to see. So you can see those Pageant treated plants, they're nice color, they're very uniform. You have much fewer skips. You don't have a bunch of disease breaking out inside those plots compared to the non-treated, where we see quite a bit of disease and even dry down on the edge. So you can see those trays along the edge are definitely more prone to some of those losses. And a lot of that comes from, the stress effects of being on the edge and the dry down associated with that. Here are the rooting benefits. So we have faster callus formation and faster rooting, as well as just more vigorous root system, more robust root system. And so you can see the Pageant treated, the 12 ounce of Pageant compared to Mural. So we know you guys have a lot of, group 7+11 combinations on the market, but they really are not all created equal. And Pageant truly does give you these nice plant health rooting benefits, and it really is the best choice in propagation. So we really like to do these side-by-side blocks with growers where basically we say, hey, treat one bench with whatever your standard propagation program, your standard fungicide program, and then swap out on the neighbor bench, use our propagation program with Pageant. And so that's what this grower did here. So the standard he had been using was T-methyl plus Subdue Max. So you can see that there on the left block, and then you can see the Pageant program. And in this case, you did 2 Pageant applications followed by a Chipco and then an Empress just prior to transplanting. So you can see just more robust top growth, higher quality plants. The color looks a little bit better. We don't see near as many skips in the Pageant block. And then when you look at those plugs up close, you can see this standard treatment looked okay, but the Pageant treated just looked so much better. It had better root system. You can also see much more increased top growth there. You can see that new flesh is about to pop out. And so that's the difference that the propagation program is going to make. It's just, increase plant quality there. Pageant applications to hanging baskets. This is a great opportunity before the baskets go up and get hung. You can run through and do a Pageant applications and then hang them. And what you're going to see is just increased plant quality, increased biomass of the baskets that have been treated with Pageant. So you just have fuller, better looking baskets. Pageant intrinsic brand fungicide really is the application of choice whenever you're producing bedding plants, in addition to, being the application of choice during propagation. So this again we had a grower who just treated some of the plants with Pageant and left some of the plants untreated and then just sent us the pictures. And so this is the difference, at a grower location. So these are really, a difference that you're going to be able to see when you do these side-by-side types of demos. So in addition to the increased growth efficiency, the other thing you're going to get is this enhanced stress tolerance. So plants that are treated with the intrinsic brand fungicides, they're going to give you, longer, denser root systems. And what that's going to mean is you're going to have more resilient plants that are able to withstand some of those environmental stresses, whether it's heat, cold, drought, or even mechanical injury. So all the stresses that we may encounter in production. So we've done a number of these stress trials over the years. Here is one on geraniums. This was a cold tolerance trial. So basically, we treated plants with 12 ounces of Pageant 3 days before they were exposed to a cold stress. And then we compared those to plants that had not been treated with Pageant. And so these photos were taken after the plants were able to acclimate. So they were exposed to the stress and then they were brought back into, a normal growth condition. And then we took the photographs there. And so you can see that the Pageant treated plants were much better able to withstand that cold stress and did not exhibit the similar symptoms of the non-treated. So typically when you are hit with a cold stress, you'll see yellowing of the plants. Sometimes you'll see some browning, discoloration, particularly of the newer tender growth, which you can see in some of that photo there in the center where those plants just were not able to bounce back following that stress event. Similarly, we've done drought stress trials where basically we turn off the irrigation and let the plants wilt or near wilt to their near permanent wilting point, and then we start watering those plants again to see how those plants were, one, able to withstand that drought stress, and then also how they were able to recover afterwards. And so you can see that the Pageant treated plants were much better able to withstand that drought stress compared to the heritage. And there you can see the untreated, where most of those plants just died and they were not able to recover. So all of these things, it's not to say you don't have to water when you use Pageant intrinsic brand fungicide, but all of these little things make a difference throughout the course of that production. So some of these plants are in production a long time, and any little incremental benefit you can give those plants, it's going to help that plant in the long run, so that by the time it makes it through production, you just have a higher quality plant when it ends up at Lowe's or Home Depot or Walmart or whatever garden center it's being sold at. And so that's kind of what we did with this trial. So basically, we had some mums that we treated prior to shipping with 12 ounces of Pageant. And so these plants were treated. And so we had treated blocks and then we had untreated blocks, and all the plants were labeled. And then they went on a truck and they were shipped to a Home Depot in Michigan. And then we took pictures and followed them through once they were at that Home Depot location. And so when they arrived at Home Depot, they were watered. And then after 11 days of being on that store shelf, the plants that had been treated with Pageant only required 2 watering events. The plants that were not treated had to be watered 5 times. So basically, every 2 days, the ones that had not been treated with Pageant had to be irrigated, whereas the Pageant treated ones only had to be irrigated about every 5 days. And then we took these photos 14 days after shipping. And so you can see that the untreated plant had significant amounts of brown senescing flowers, and that plant was no longer marketable. Whereas the Pageant treated plant had no brown flowers and it was still highly marketable after 14 days at the store. And so treating with Pageant before those plants go out the door at the grower facility is going to end up giving you higher quality plants at the market, at the box store. And then also those plants are going to be better able to withstand, kind of some of the poor treatment that they receive once they're at the box stores. And so this will definitely make a difference. And, we've had growers who have started doing pageant prior to shipping and just report, better outcomes throughout that shipping process. We did a little article about it. So if you're interested in, reading more about that, you can scan that QR code and go to this link. So that's kind of the plant health benefits. In addition to all those plant health benefits, the intrinsic brand fungicides really do deliver powerful broad spectrum disease control. And so these fungicides really are strong enough to actually carry a fungicide program. And so that's why we make them the foundation of the spray program, and then we can build in other applications as needed. So I'll kind of spend the rest of the time talking about disease control here. So, like I said, we absolutely love doing these side-by-side photos with growers. And so this is a photo from a large nursery operation in Florida. And so these were side by side. So you can see the blocks are right next to each other. That little dividing line was just to designate the two sides, but they really were, on the same irrigation sprinkler system. And the only difference in the blocks was that the block on the left received pageant as part of their standard program, and the block on the right received a mural application as part of the program. And so, like I said, both of these, so you have 7 and 11 combination fungicides, but they are not created equal. And so this is really why Pageant and Orchestra are the better choices here. So there was an outbreak of Phytophthora in the mural treated block. And so that's what's called out there in the photo. So all that big gap, that empty space, that's where plants had to be thrown away because they had aerial Phytophthora. That did not happen in the pageant treated block. So you can see nice uniformity in the pageant treated block. Also, you can see that the pageant treated plants were so healthy and vigorous. So they had gone through and mowed the top of these plants because they were getting a little tall. So they just went through and mowed the top off. And so all of that flush, that new growth, that's all flushing back. So you can see the pageant treated ones have much better flush and new growth showing up there. So just, overall increased plant vigor. So that's kind of pageant. The other intrinsic brand fungicide we have is Orchestra intrinsic brand fungicide. So again, this is pyraclostrobin plus a group 11 or a group 7 SDHI. So in this case, it's pyraclostrobin plus fluxaperoxide. So broad spectrum fungicide. Fluxaperoxide gives really nice systemic activity. So we have, very fast, long-lasting protection, including protecting that new growth. And the really nice thing about Orchestra is it delivers or it has excellent rain fastness. And so this is why we tend to put Orchestra in outdoor production systems. It's also why Orchestra is such a great option for landscape ornamentals. Particularly in areas where you have a lot of summer rainfall, and then also, an outdoor production where you have mostly overhead irrigation. So that rain fastness is really going to make a difference in those situations. It also has the same plant health benefits of the other intrinsic brand fungicides. And so I'll show you some of those benefits. So this is the difference of an orchestra treated compared to a non-treated. So again, these are those plant health benefits. So absence of disease, you're just seeing that increased top growth, increased plant quality on the orchestra treated plants there. Like I mentioned, Orchestra has really nice systemic activity. So it is able to move into the new growth as it emerges, which is really nice in ornamental production where you have a lot of, flushes and new growth. And so sometimes you end up with a flush right after you've made a fungicide application, and Orchestra is able to move into that new tissue. And so that's what you're seeing in this photo. So both of these plants were treated with Orchestra Intrinsic. The one on the left is a preventative application, so you can see totally clean. The one on the right was a curative application. So we already had disease symptoms. You can see that alternaria leaf spot. It causes those little brown lesions. And then we treated with Orchestra, and the new growth is nice and healthy and infection free. And so that systemic activity is what allows that new growth to be protected as it emerges. So with most foliar diseases, curative applications are not going to reverse those symptoms. So you're still going to have those lesions. And so that's why we want to stress using, a robust preventative fungicide program to really get ahead of the diseases before they occur. Because if you wait until you see symptoms, it really is going to be too late. So, with everything with these fungicides, they always work better. Any fungicide always works better if you apply preventatively. And so that's what we try to stress with growers, is getting on a good program. And that makes a huge difference if you're growing some of the crops that are disease magnets. And so anthracnose is really a devastating disease on a number of different hosts, but especially on a lot of our tropical plants and foliage crops. And so anthracnose produces sticky spores. They're splash dispersed during rain events and overhead watering. And so this is the disease, like many of our foliar diseases, that can just quickly get out of hand and become very difficult to manage. And so Orchestra makes an excellent choice on crops like Sansevieria that are really prone to anthracnose diseases. Plus, that systemic activity is really nice because sometimes it is hard to get good spray coverage, particularly when you have leaf shape like this, and also when you have really dense canopies. And so having a fungicide that's got good systemic activity will help out in those cases too, to make sure the plant is thoroughly protected. So looking at, larger trees, Orchestra makes a great option. There's a lot of foliar diseases that cause some pretty significant damage on trees. These are some apple trees that had cedar apple rust. And so you can clearly see the tree that had been treated with Orchestra. The color is great and it is disease-free. Here's that up close. You can just clearly see a huge difference in the Orchestra treated tree. And so with a lot of trees, basically you want to start your fungicide program around bud break to protect that growth, that new growth, new leaves as they emerge. Similarly, here's another prunus. This is a cherry tree in the landscape. This one had been treated with Orchestra. So you can clearly see the color difference compared to the non-treated and the other treatments in that row. And then here are those plants up close. So this was Bloomiarella leaf spot. It causes a shot hole symptom, and you can see the Orchestra treated leaves look great. Orchestra is awesome on botrytis. So this is our go-to botrytis product. This was a trial we did on cut flowers. So these were hydrangeas that were treated pre-harvest. And then we measured the percent botrytis blight once they had been cut and stuck in vases. And so you can see the Orchestra treatment had the best disease control, so it reduced botrytis blight, and then it also increased that shelf life compared to the non-treated and then some of the competitive checks there. So really nice botrytis product. It makes a good addition to any botrytis program. You can use Orchestra on poinsettias after color change. You can add a plant-safe adjuvant to reduce some of the residue a little bit. but it's a nice option on poinsettias after color change, and does not exhibit any phyto to bracts like some of the competitive treatments there. So great option again to your botrytis programs. So those are the intrinsic brand fungicides. Now I'm going to move on to Avelio, which is another one of our fungicides in the summer program. So Avelio is our newest fungicide. We released it a couple years ago. It's a DMI, so it's a next generation DMI, broad spectrum. So it covers a wide range of diseases from, root and crown diseases to foliar diseases. Pretty much anytime you're using pageant or orchestra, you can partner it with a Valio fungicide for any disease. It's a really nice formulation, excellent rain fastness, gives you long-lasting residual activity, and it's incredibly safe, which is probably one of the best things about it. And I'll get into that here in a second. But a nice rotation partner to any of our intrinsic brand fungicides. So like I said, this is a DMI. The active ingredient here is methentrifluconazole. Some of the suggested rates. So for root and crown diseases like the labiopsis and cylindrocladium, you're going to be at that 3 fluid ounces for a drench. We are adding fusarium and rhizoctonia to the label, and so you're going to want to be at 8 fluid ounces for those diseases. For your foliar leaf spots and anthracnose, you can use 5 to 8 fluid ounces. Rust diseases, you want to be in that 8 to 10 ounce range. Same with some of our stem blights. But like I mentioned, probably the most exciting thing about Avelio is its plant safety. You can use it anytime in the production cycle from propagation all the way to bloom and finish. No PGR effects, which is pretty unique for a DMI. So we've observed no PGR effects, no damage to blooms, no visible residue. And we've tested it on in internal trials on over 124 varieties with no injury. And then it's also been in the market now for a couple years, and we've had no reports of injury across the board. So it really is a great utility fungicide that you can use pretty much any time in the production cycle. So no injury to small plants. This is why we included Avelio in our propagation program. You can see no issue on rooting or top growth. It doesn't stunt the roots. It doesn't cause any PGR effects, even on unrooted cuttings during propagation. You can use Avelio after color change on poinsettias, so no residue issues, even at the highest label rate. So you have a lot of flexibility where you can use it. Looking at some of the diseases that it controls, it's really good on Phalaeviopsis or black root rot. So this is a trial we did on pansies. And here you can see that Avelio provided excellent control with a 28-day interval compared to the industry standard of T-methyl that was applied on a 14-day interval. So it's excellent Phalaeviopsis control. So if you're growing, pansies, if you're growing calibrachoas, if you're growing Japanese hollies or some of the foliage crops, this is a great option. So apply it as a drench. Here are the roots. You can see the standard T-methyl roots compared to Avelio. Nice root system there. Similarly, Avelio provides excellent cylindrocladium control. So here is a trial on spathiphyllum, and you can see Avelio just providing excellent control. Here's another one on cylindrocladium root rot, and this is again really speaks to the safety of Avelio, because a lot of these DMIs can cause a little bit of root stunting, and Avelio does not do that. So this rating was actually showing the percentage of healthy roots And the Avalio was by far better than the other treatments. So very nice root systems when you use drenches of Avalio. So in addition to root and crown diseases, Avalio also provides excellent control of your foliar diseases, and it gives really long-lasting activity. So this was a pretty cool trial where we were comparing Avalio to propiconazole, and this is powdery mildew on zinnia, which, anyone that grows zinnia knows they are just magnets for powdery mildew. And so basically, we were trying to see the residual longevity of those Avalio applications. And so you can see at 13 days after treatment, the Avalio plants are still super clean, whereas the propiconazole had already started breaking, and we already see quite a bit of powdery mildew up there. By 22 days, Avalio is still pretty clean compared to that propiconazole with significant disease pressure. And then even at 29 days after treatment, you can start seeing some powdery mildew coming in on the upper leaves, but still overall pretty clean. And here were those plants just a little up close there. This photo was from the 22 days after treatment. So nice extended residual. It's a great option for powdery mildew. Powdery mildew is probably the most common disease in ornamental production across, numerous hosts. And so Avalio makes a really solid option because it's plant safe. You can use it on open blooms, no stunting, and no residue. So really just an easy choice there. I already mentioned anthracnose with orchestra, and so this is just showing you that Avalio makes a great rotation partner with orchestra. So like I said, anytime you're using orchestra or pageant, Avalio you can use with it. Peony, this is Cladosporium leaf spot. Again, just excellent control of your wide range of fungal diseases. So this is why Avalio is such a great utility fungicide, because you get broad spectrum control like you have, two active ingredients, but it's a solo product. So you're getting all of this with just that single active ingredient solo. So it gives you flexibility with how you can rotate it, what you can tank mix with it. You can pretty much use it anywhere. It's really nice. Rust diseases, whenever you're going after rust, we do recommend you put in a plant-safe adjuvant. So Avalio provides nice control of rust. On daylily, we have seen a benefit when you add a plant-safe adjuvant, something like a capsule to the mix. So that's an option for you as well. You have the flexibility to use that. Here's just a quick chart showing, what each of these fungicides brings to the table. So you have Avalio with a nice broad spectrum range. And then as you start rotating or tank mixing, you just add more and more diseases. So pretty much anything that you're going to encounter in production, the Avalio orchestra pageant rotation is going to cover you for that. And when you use it in a rotation, you can just see the increase in control. So as you start rotating through these products, you just get better control overall. So even on some of the more difficult diseases like black spotted rose, here you have Entomosporium leaf spot, which we know is particularly hard to control, and both Avalio and Orchestra provide excellent control of that. I don't know how many people on the call are in Tennessee or in the Southeast, but vascular streak dieback has been getting a lot of attention the last few years. And we have been doing a lot of work on this disease with Dr. Folia Gurel at Tennessee State University. And so this is some of the work she's been doing, some of the fungicide trials. So this is an emerging threat to our redbud nursery production in the Southeast. It's been confirmed in Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina, Indiana, Florida, Oklahoma. And this is some of the symptoms that you'll see on red buds. You'll have that vascular streaking. You'll see that dieback. You'll see water sprouts, chlorosis, defoliation, and then ultimately these trees can even die. And so some of the work that we've been doing is looking at various fungicide rotations to reduce the symptomology. And so this is just a excerpt from this past year's fungicide trials. There were a number of treatments in these trials. But what I want to point out is that Avalio and Orchestra and rotations with either Orchestra or Avalio have performed really well in these trials. And so we recommend, if you are dealing with this, to begin your fungicide applications early in the spring. Probably the best bet would be to begin them around bloom, but definitely, by May 1st, if at all possible, and include Orchestra and Avalio in those rotations, in addition to using, good sanitation and cultural practices to help control or reduce, losses due to vascular streak dieback. So I wanted to share that. I don't know if anyone on the call is from that area, but, this is a big emphasis in the Southeast, and it may become more of an issue, elsewhere too. And then finally, I did mention that we were adding fusarium to the Avalio label. And so this is just some of the work we've done. If you're growing, garden mums or some of the other crops that have a lot of fusarium problems, rotations with Orchestra and Avalio make a good program for dealing with that. So here's fusarium wilt on chrysanthemums, and you can see that Orchestra Avalio providing really nice control of fusarium wilt. Similarly, we had a fusarium rot on cyclamen trial, and again, Avalio providing the best disease control, and it had disease severity ratings that were actually equal to the non-inoculated control. So it's a great utility fungicide. It's priced really well, so it really is just an easy choice to add to any rotation for the most part. So this is just a nice chart to show kind of how we position these different fungicides in the production cycle. So on young plants, that's where we're putting Pageant, Avalio, and Empress. That transplant window, that's kind of, again, where you have Empress and Avalio. Growth to finish, that's where Orchestra comes in. And then we also have, like I said, our oomycete specialists, which are Orvego and Stature, which I didn't talk about today, but they provide excellent control of Phytophthora and downy mildew diseases. And then market ready prior to shipping, again, that's a great place you can put Pageant. We have these really nice, simple spray programs. These are published every year in the IMF guide. And basically all of them kind of have a foundational intrinsic brand fungicide that anchors the rotation, and then they rotate through, modes of action. So you've got contacts and, targeted specialists. So if you want a downy mildew or a Phytophthora specialist in the rotation. So really they're meant to be just a starting point for some of the key diseases, how you can build out a rotation with BASF fungicides in addition to, other fungicides to round out the rotation. So that's kind of the portfolio. I think we have plenty of time for questions. This is my contact. If you ever have questions, want to talk about rotations and programs, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can email me or text me. I'm probably faster to respond to a text message than a phone call. But you can point your phone at that QR code and save my contact for later. Otherwise, I'll pass it back to Liz. And
well, you have follow-up information here. If you have any questions that do arise, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Emma or your BASF representative. We appreciate the time this afternoon and wish you a successful fall production. So take care, everyone, and thanks for the time today.